I'm not afraid. I think we need to have courage. If we don't have courage at the district attorney's office, then the people are the ones who suffer. The common person, the people that we're speaking about who are victims of crime, especially, quite frankly, blacks, Hispanics, and working class white folks in this city who are, quite frankly, very much squeezed out of the political process today. Who's going to fight for them? They're the ones who have to send their kids to the public school. And if they're able to and they're lucky about it, they can have the 2 or 3 jobs to scrape a couple nickels together, send them to a good Catholic school. But that's not fair. That shouldn't even have to be the case. Why are schools so bad? Again, it goes back to the fact that nothing is being done about public corruption.
Okay.
Let the U.S. attorneys do what they're going to do, but we need to clean up our own house as well.
Okay, so the big difference here tonight is very simple. Mr. Alvarez believes that everything starts with the root of corruption in government. You believe that everything starts with the street and has to be attacked on the street level. And that's a pretty interesting philosophical difference here, connecting corruption to violent crime. You don't see that connection.
Well, I see what's important is that we have to do all that we can to prevent crime. That's first and foremost what Philadelphians want. Your family, Larry, prefer that you weren't shot, not that the DA's office handled the case very well. So we have to do all that we can to work to reduce and prevent crime and to reduce recidivism. There is a role, of course, to play in prosecuting municipal corruption, but the sun doesn't rise and set in Philadelphia solely on municipal corruption, and that's where all the dollars are going to prevent everything else. That's a problem. But Philadelphians want us to deal with the gun violence. They want us to deal with the violence on the streets, the gunpoint robberies. That's first and foremost what we have to do, and we're going to do that by continuing to be smart on crime and to prevent crime.
We'll have Danny Alvarez and Seth Williams right back after this break on Voice of Reason as we continue the first and only televised debate, only debate at all, of this campaign in a moment. Back in Voice of Reason, some people were a little surprised. We've had Police Commissioner Ramsey on the program a couple of times, and I know the stats were there, but I asked him what the biggest crime problem was in Philadelphia, and of course he said, fatalities and murders are the worst crime you can imagine, but the biggest overall crime was crime against property and people.
Right.
People affected by burglaries, car break-ins. How would you deal with those? I know for a fact that for the most part in Philadelphia today with the police department, if your car gets broken into, you call a recording. It's rare to get a police officer to come out to the street because they've got a lot of other problems. How does the DA's office get involved in crimes against property and servicing the people better?
Yeah, I think that for starters, I after speaking to a lot of people out there on the campaign trail, and one conversation comes to mind as I was talking to a family in front of their house in Bridesburg, and one of the things they kept talking about was the property crime in Bridesburg and how this sort of thing really disrupts, working people's lives. I mean, you get your car broken into, you call the police, and my understanding is that a lot of this actually goes unreported. So, you get your window broken in, you call the police, and then you're late to work. I think that the best way to go about prosecuting this is just to take these crimes seriously, because I do think that there's something to be said about prosecuting the so-called smaller nuisance crimes, because this is what drives people out of the city. Not only that, but I do believe also that a lot of these small crimes end up becoming more bold crimes when people aren't caught and prosecuted successfully.
Well, there's nothing worse than murder, obviously, in life, murder and rape. But in a city like Philadelphia, which has a school situation now that's uncertain, and where a lot of young couples have moved in to sort of renew and regenerate the city, a lot of young couples are now thinking about moving out. And if you take an uncertainty about schools and taxes and you add the potential for property crime, it's a pretty bad situation.
You're exactly right. Larry, my father was committed to the city of Philadelphia, lifelong resident, taught in the schools here, worked at the recreation center, ran a day camp. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Philadelphia. I have 3 daughters. I'm not going anywhere. And so you're right. If I were to make a crime pyramid, about the top 5% are the violent crimes. The other 95% are drug crimes and property crimes. But those are the crimes that we have the greatest ability as a society, as a community, as a people to prevent. And we have to do that by many ways, a holistic approach. We have to do all that we can to help the first-time offender so they don't become a repeat offender. The majority of those people are committing crimes over and over. 5% of the criminals commit 60% of the crimes. We have to help them the first time. We have to get people into drug rehab. We have to help those folks. We also have to be very supportive. And through community-based prosecution that I brought into the district attorney's office, that we've received an award by the Justice Department and the Association of Prosecuting Attorneys for innovation. The DAs are now assigned geographically. They're working better now as champions for communities. We have to support those neighbors. We have to go out, and I'm taking shots from some people because I hired people so that we can go out and help train the public. But that's what we have to do. We have to support Town Watch Integrated Services to help community members prevent crime. As you know, I was the president of the Overbrook Park Town Watch and Civic Association for 10 years. I'm a lifelong Philadelphian, going out there working with community members. We have to do that. But as good neighbors, and working as DAs, working with those good neighbors and strengthening them, we can prevent those crimes. 50% of all the cars stolen in Philadelphia, Larry, the owner left the key in the ignition. The majority of burglaries, the owners of the homes left a door unlocked or a window. We can prevent a lot of crimes. In the DA's office, I'm proud to say, we go out now and try to help prevent those crimes by teaching the citizens.
We had a very interesting program here about a month or 2 ago, where we talked to people involved in an association for early childhood education and the critical nature of preschool learning and the link, so you just talked about it before, the other DAs, the link between the psychology of early learning and the facts and the people that go to prison.
Yeah, Larry, I'm sorry, I was here that day.
Oh, you were there that day.
I was on that panel.
Well, you know,
I'm the DA, and I was here to talk to you about that.
You didn't invite me, Larry.
I served on the
it was not related to the
because
election.
you're not expert on that.
But that was
the reason.
But that was an interesting group because we had representatives of the whole area.
That's exactly
and
right.
I was fascinated by that. That the early childhood education, I like your comment on this, and by the way, not everybody can afford appropriate preschools, okay, will have an impact on the future life of criminality. What's your plan for that? Is there any way that you can beef up the resources? You know, you don't have money in the DA's office. The DA's office is always challenged for money to get people early childhood education, but support for it is critical, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's again, it goes back to the whole culture behind the whole thing. I'm a firm believer that the best learning you'll ever have is from your mother and their father. If you're lucky to have both your parents at home. It's not always the case, but we need that strong presence at the home. Unfortunately, in a society where, again, I'll say it, perhaps it's controversial, where you do have this one-party rule, where blacks and Hispanics and working class white folk live in the worst neighborhoods with the worst schools and the highest dropout rates and the highest poverty. Something needs to be said about the district attorney having a role in combating crime and making the quality of life better. But also, Larry, if I may, it's also a cultural thing. And I think that it goes back to, I know you don't want to talk about it anymore, but the fact that 3 years as Inspector General and almost 4 years as the top prosecutor and law enforcement official in the city, my opponent has done absolutely nothing to combat public corruption, which is robbing from the taxpayer and taking money where it could have been used for things like early childhood development and educational programs.
We have to take a very quick break. We'll be right back after this. Okay, we have the district attorney. I wanted to answer what Danny Alvarez accused you of. He said, in all the years as Inspector General, the almost 4 years as district attorney, that he said you basically not accomplished much. So, I mean, I think you deserve the right to answer that.
Well, thank you very much. And I have a significant record of achievement and accomplishment that I think Philadelphians know me.
He was referring to corruption.
Correct, but of everything. And, So I think if you were to ask those people who lost their jobs when I was the Inspector General, the people who were referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office for prosecution, the people who have been investigated and are being prosecuted now by the District Attorney's Office, I think they would think it's significant. So I have to disagree with, again, my Republican opponent. But more importantly, your question, Larry, was about education. Early childhood education. Does the DA's office have a role to play? No, I'm not the school principal. I'm not the superintendent of the school district. I'm going to work with them. But I can use the bully pulpit to talk about the need for supporting. For every $100 invested in early childhood education saves us $700 from prison costs. I'm proud to have been asked to be on the National Board of Directors of Fight Crime, Invest in Kids. There is a role for the District Attorney's Office. I am a proponent of trying to do all that we can so that the District Attorney's Office is involved with prosecuting parents who allow their elementary school students and children to be chronically truant. Now, there's some, of course, that have dysfunction, and we have to help them. But we want the District Attorney's Office to be engaged so that those parents that are keeping kids home solely so they can babysit younger siblings or that don't value education, so that we can be the hammer, if you will, for Dr. Height, for Anne-Marie Ambrose at the Department of Human Services to make those kids and keep them in school. That's the number one indicator for success. Can we get those kids into school? Can we socialize them to be prepared for school through early childhood education, through quality education? And that will help them make sure they can graduate, which again we know is the greatest indicator of criminal behavior.
There's a problem in Philadelphia that cuts across all cultural and social and economic lines that isn't talked about that much. And that this is in the suburbs as well. That's domestic violence. It becomes sort of the suburban secret, the city secret, the thing that people don't want to talk about because it involves couples and families. Is there an Alvarez plan for trying to curb domestic violence?
Well, I think to continue enforcing the law as it exists. I like the fact that there is the automatic arrest rule. When it comes to, police officers come to a house, there's been an allegation of domestic violence and somebody has fresh wounds on them. I do agree with that. I think that's a very good thing. But, with domestic violence, there's also other things that are also related. How about the fact that Philadelphia, with its international airport, its ports, its highways, is very much becoming a hub of human trafficking. And that's a concern as well. And I think that right now, nothing is being done about it except for talking about it. Now, at my district attorney's office, I can assure you that any position that has any title referencing, liaison or community relations, whatever, because money is tight, it'd be nice to have all these positions, but because money is so limited, we need to cut those